Greg Bovino, the Border Patrol officer in charge of the operations in Los Angeles, Chicago, and now Charlotte, says they're coming back to Chicago. Greg Bovino is a racist and a liar. That's not me. That's according to interviews and testimony Greg Bovino has given. He's proven himself a racist liar. Well, how else would he have gotten the job? In an interview with WBEZ Radio, Greg Bovino said ICE makes arrests based on articulable facts. And what are those articulable facts? The complexion and accent of an individual. Or as he said to the white male from WBEZ Radio interviewing him, he said, we arrest someone because they don't look or sound like you. The reporter from WBEZ Chicago was white. That's racism. It's also against the law, unfortunately not according to the Supreme Court, which issued a temporary ruling this year allowing ICE to factor in an individual's color and accent when stopping to ask for proof of citizenship. Judge Brett Kavanaugh wrote in his concurring opinion that American citizens who look Hispanic might accidentally get arrested, but once they can prove they're living here legally, they will be released. Isn't that nice? As though getting arrested is a minor inconvenience. Have you ever spent an hour inside an ICE detention center? Some of these citizens spent hours, even days. The Broadview ICE detention facility is out in the suburbs of Chicago, and it's where the immigrants are temporarily held. One judge calling conditions inside that detention facility disgusting, disturbing, and unconstitutional. The Broadview Detention Center is filled with rats, leaky faucets, blood-stained sinks, open-air toilets, and no separate facilities for women and men, and one meal a day if the inmates are lucky. The judge ordered improvements, like clean drinking water. Illinois Senators Dick Durbin and Tammy Duckworth tried to inspect that facility. They were not allowed in. One judge asked to see closed-circuit surveillance video from the facility. The judge was told, that video doesn't exist. We wipe them clean. U.S. District Judge Sarah Lee Ellis, who serves the Northern District of Illinois, said conditions inside the Broadview, Illinois detention facility and the behavior of ICE agents, including Greg Bovino, the man in charge of Operation Midway Blitz, quote, shock the conscience. Judge Ellis called Bovino into her courtroom several times and concluded that he lied under oath during a November 4th deposition when he was asked about his violent tackling of a suspect and his throwing 2 tear gas canisters illegally into a crowd of peaceful and predominantly Mexican-American protesters. Greg Bovino is a liar. The judge said so. Before being brought before the judge, Bovino had been ordered not to use tear gas on Chicago protesters unless there was incontrovertible evidence that ICE agents were in danger, and even then, the protesters had to be warned by ICE before the tear gas was released. Bovino was caught in direct defiance of that order. He was caught on video throwing 2 canisters of tear gas at peaceful protesters. During his deposition, he claimed he threw the tear gas after he said he got hit in the helmet by a rock. He's a liar. He claimed shots were fired at officers. He's a liar. Video showed the shots fired were in fact pepper balls aimed at protesters by ICE agents. Greg Bovino is a liar. The judge said so. During Greg Bovino's deposition, video was shown clearly demonstrating that Greg Bovino wasn't hit by any projectile and that he just decided to break up the protest by tossing tear gas, clearly violating the First Amendment rights of these citizens, according to the judge who called Greg Bovino a liar. Then there was the issue of Greg Bovino violently tackling a U.S. citizen who was protesting outside the Broadview detention facility in the suburbs of Chicago, where the migrants are temporarily detained. About 200 peaceful protesters gathered outside this facility on September 19th. At around 8 p.m., Greg Bovino led a line of 30 ICE agents in riot gear into the crowd, and they began roughing up the protesters, including one American citizen holding a "No Kids in Cages" sign. This citizen ended up getting violently tackled by Greg Bovino for no reason other than Greg Bovino wanted to mess someone up. Bovino testified that he tackled that protester, in response to the mob turning violent. He said some sort of explosives were fired at the ICE agents, followed by calls from protesters to attack the agents. Bovino, the cowardly liar, said he felt threatened. Poor little baby. And I mean little. But body cam footage and video shot by a helicopter clearly showed that the only explosives that day were the ones fired by ICE agents at protesters, and the only calls for attack came from Greg Bovino himself. Greg Bovino was caught on camera shouting, quote, "Let's get him." Bovino's order of "let's get him" was corroborated by a 12-year veteran of U.S. Customs and Border Patrol who served under Commander Gregory Bovino during Operation Midway Blitz this summer in Chicago. That Border Patrol officer, who has a sterling record, testified before Judge Ellis that he wanted to be loyal to Greg Bovino, but because I'm under oath, I have to testify truthfully, something Greg Bovino might want to try. And this Border Patrol officer admitted that it was his commander, Greg Bovino, not the crowd, not the protester that Greg Bovino violently tackled, but it was Greg Bovino, according to the Border Patrol officer's testimony. It was Greg Bovino who precipitated the violence. Judge Ellis, who presided over the hearing, wrote in her ruling, quote, "Bovino admitted that he lied," unquote. Bovino admitted that he lied, providing cute responses or outright lying, unquote. Greg Bovino, who ran Operation Midway Blitz, he's now down in Charlotte, rounding up innocent people, is a liar, according to Judge Ellis, who then raised the possibility of sanctioning Greg Bovino, either with a fine or a contempt of court citation. She also suggested a possible criminal referral to the U.S. Attorney's Office, charging Bovino with perjury. She may make a criminal referral to the Justice Department to charge Greg Bovino with perjury. But he will never be prosecuted because the U.S. Attorney's Office answers to Pam Bondi, who answers to Donald Trump, who is a liar, and so is she, which is why Greg Bovino is a liar. It's amazing what you can get away with when you're the law. For years, I've been telling you the Black Lives Matter protesters were peaceful, and that all studies show that any violence at any BLM protest was precipitated by police who ended up paying out tens of millions of dollars to BLM protesters to settle police brutality lawsuits. Body cam footage, helicopter footage, all showed it was law enforcement during the Black Lives Matter protests who got violent with the protesters, not the other way around. Yes, there are outside agitators like Kyle Rittenhouse, but the people organizing the protests, Black Lives Matter, or the No Kings protests this year, or the anti-ICE protests we see in Los Angeles or Chicago and Charlotte. These are peaceful people. These are peaceful protesters. In Chicago, you see nurses, priests, rabbis, teachers, and veterans protesting. They are peaceful, and they remain peaceful even when ICE fires tear gas and beats them. No civilized society trusts its law enforcement. Even Donald Trump says don't trust the FBI. He's right. You don't trust law enforcement. You don't trust the police. You don't trust ICE. Practically every amendment in our Bill of Rights is about reining in the police. People with power, especially power over someone else's body, abuse that power. You never trust anyone with power. You never trust anyone who wants power because something is clearly wrong with people like Gregory Bovino. Something is clearly wrong with Border Czar, Tom Homan, Steve Miller, Kristi Noem, the whole lot of them. The Constitution of the United States, which these people are supposed to swear an oath to, the Constitution says don't trust people in power.